Lovely. Thank you so much for inviting me, Brian, and hello everybody. Not at all intimidating to be the first one up to speak. So here I am, requirements and hypotheses and my experiences with Lean UX. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I've been learning over the last year or so and what I've been putting into practice. I'll start off with an inspirational quote because it's always good to start off with something like that, and this is a line that I roll out quite regularly when I'm talking about usability testing and things like that. And I was going to ask the group if anybody had an idea which UX guru had come up with such a line, but I suspect that you probably saw the answer to that as we flashed the slides up. It's actually that UX specialist, Benny Hill. So what happened? Last year, I went along to a full-day workshop by a very inspirational guy called Jeff Gothelf, who also wrote the Lean UX book. And the day was all about how large organizations can adapt and change the way that they work in very challenging business environments, where small startup companies are coming into various industries and disrupting the way that they work. And I thought that was really interesting for the HE sector, because I'm sure it's coming. It hasn't impacted us in maybe quite the same way it has other areas so far, but I'm pretty sure it's just a matter of time. But it was a real light bulb moment for me, and it's really had a profound effect in how I go about thinking about projects and things that I'm working on. So while you're probably or possibly not involved in product development yourself, I would suggest that the things that I'm going to talk about today are equally relevant. So if you're involved in software development or maintenance, if you run a service, if you look after a bit of a website, you're looking after content delivery, that kind of thing, the principles and the things I'm going to talk about today hopefully will resonate with you too. So, first thing, there's this mythical state of perfection. And the idea that the project that we're working on, the software that we're delivering, the website that we're delivering, that when we're done on this project, it will be done and it will be perfect. And certainly I think amongst people who fund our work, they have that kind of expectation. And I would argue there's, we maybe don't do enough to dispel that myth. So this tree standing there in the fog, it's a mythical state of product perfection, and that's what we're trying to reach. Okay. Now think for a second about the projects that you run and how you go about executing them. Do you get together with your team, look at that tree in the fog, decide on a path, and just march off in that direction? Now what if there's a cliff somewhere in that fog? Or maybe something not quite so dramatic, but nevertheless something that should be causing you to, that will knock you off track or delay you or that kind of thing. If we were really there, looking at that tree off in the distance, realistically, would we do that? Would we just set off marching in that direction regardless and just keep going until we're told to stop, till we run out of steam, run out of money? Not really, would we? We would take a few steps, survey where we got to now, just check the surroundings, and potentially change path if we see a quagmire or something in the way, and adjust our path as we head in that direction. So why can't we do this with development too? And that's really what all this is about. So I mentioned this guy, Jeff Gothelf. Here he is in all his glory, and there's the book. There's a lot more people talk about this topic. There's also another book I would recommend by a guy called Thomas Sharon. He talks about validating product experiences. But for people who haven't come across this concept before, I've just totally ripped off, well, I've ripped off quite a lot of Jeff's work here in these slides. I'm not be shy about that. There's a lot of good ideas in there. So, inspired by lean startup and agile development, it's the practice of bringing the true nature of a product to light faster in a collaborative, cross-functional way. We work to build a shared understanding of the customer, their needs, our proposed solutions, and definition of success. And we prioritize learning over delivery to build evidence for our decisions. Wise words. But in a nutshell, what he's talking about is this idea that requirements are assumptions. Or to put it another way, the way I think about it, it's about making sure that what you're doing is likely to be a good idea in the first place, and not putting too much effort into it until you've established that it is a good idea. So how many web pages have we built? How many websites? How many features in software? How many services do we run? that are basically redundant, or they're costing you a lot to maintain, or they're having an impact on the overall user experience. And how did they come to be like that in the first place? Possibly it's because nobody stopped to ask why, or because the boss just said, just do it, I've decided this is a good idea and this is what we're going to do. So, anyway, we'll skip out from me. I just want to share a little video with you for a second.
You mean that's it?
Do you even know what it is?
It's gum.
Yeah. It's a stick of the most amazing and sensational gum in the whole universe. Know why? Know why? Because this gum is a full 3-course dinner all by itself.
Why would anyone want that?
It will be the end of all kitchens and all cooking. Just a little strip of Wonka's magic chewing gum, and that is all you will ever need at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This piece of gum happens to be tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie.
It sounds great.
It sounds weird. Sounds like my kind of gum.
So, how often have we encountered that kind of experience, where there's a marketing vision of what it is that we're going to deliver, or better yet, a vice principal has a fantastic idea for a new thing that we're going to do, and we plow on and we do it, regardless of our understanding of how the audience is going to react to it. So all that effort that you put into delivering something, and you might actually achieve success by the measure of what your vice principals are expecting, to get that reaction of, it sounds weird, or just apathy, perhaps. So basically, Lean UX is all about doing just enough to establish whether development is a good idea, and using evidence of user interaction or demand for the thing that you're putting out there to justify continuing down that particular path. There's a well-used phrase in the field, and that's fail fast and fail cheap. But I would suspect that if you used that phrase back in the office, that probably wouldn't go down too well. I prefer to use the word learn fast, learn cheap, rather than fail. That'll probably work a little bit better. Again, I said I would steal quite a lot from Jeff. So this really caused me to reflect on how we've been working at the University of Edinburgh. So with the website program, we've just delivered a new content management system. And over the past 3 or so years, we've been working agile. And I think we're okay at it. You know, we've learned a lot along the way, and it's gone pretty well. People are pretty happy with the product that we've delivered. And if you're interested, some colleagues of mine are running a great workshop a little bit later this afternoon, all about how that all went. But I've personally found it a bit frustrating at times because of this feature focus. For some parts of the team, the university's expectation as a whole, our measure of success has been on feature X, feature Y, and just churning them out as progress with the content management system. And of course, I'm biased because I work in user experience, so I see a lot more value in taking what we've got and making it better and making it work better and learning about what users want from what we've got, rather than necessarily pursuing the next bell or the next whistle. And of course, there's a balance to be struck there. But I think this from Jeff is incredibly true. You know, we are measured on the things that we deliver rather than on the outcomes that really underlie the features. Why are we putting these things in place? So that we can do particular things, or we encourage users to do particular things. And if you take nothing else away from what I'm talking about today, take this, and I challenge you to use it, really. This is the Lean Hypothesis statement. We believe that, insert your business outcome here, will be achieved if a particular group of users can successfully attain their outcome with the feature. Notice in that statement, the feature comes last. But how often is it that people come to you with software or website development, and the thing that they come with is the feature? and the business outcome and the user group and the user's goals or aims are implicit. They're possibly never actually expressed explicitly, so that you have something clear to measure the feature or the value of the feature against. I find this really useful, and this has really turned around how I think about a lot of stuff that we do. So dig into the feature. What is it actually there to do? It's not about delivering the feature itself. It's what the feature can do for the business and what the feature can do for the user. So this is the lean UX cycle. There are tons of cycles of development. You've possibly seen this one, or certainly seen ones similar to this before. But where should we start whenever we work in this area? Always start with some learning. So whether we're talking about developing something new or enhancing something that you already have, you really need to start by learning about what your users need and want, and what the business needs and wants. And I'd say that's not necessarily by going out and asking, because what people say they want and what they really want are two different things. There's a great website called UX Myths, I think it's number 23. It's all about this, with all the research that sits behind the idea of what people say and what they want. So really what we're trying to do is understand, hopefully from observation and interaction and evidence of demand, and with your team collaboratively generate ideas of how we might deliver on that demand, and build something as quickly and as cheaply as possible, then measure the effect, and then work out whether to develop it or kill it off. And go back to your learning and generate new ideas if your first ideas weren't as great as you thought they were. So, as I've said so far, that's pretty much been other people's work. So what I'm going to move on to now and talk about for a little bit is my experience, or rather our team's experience. I've got two little case studies for you of how we've been putting the ideas of Lean UX into practice at the website program. So I said at the start that I went along to this Lean UX for Enterprise day-long workshop, which was absolutely excellent. And basically, it took us through a workshop, and these were the things that we did. We began with a specific desired outcome for a business. And as a little team working together, we collaboratively established what are the business outcomes that are important to us. What things could we do and measure that will give us an indication of the greater desired outcome, that we were working towards that. Being clear and explicit together about who our users were that we were serving, what we thought they wanted to achieve as well. And then and only then, brainstorming what features we might develop to deliver for both the business and for the user. And because we've got outcomes in there, we have an idea of the things that we put in place, how we're going to measure whether those features are actually doing the business for us. So basically, what I did was, I went back to our team, and I'm a user support manager as well, and we were in the middle of a review. Because of the new CMS coming aboard, we were dropping some things that we've done previously, and we had new challenges to meet, so we were changing how we were doing things with user support. So with my little support team, I set a target. I wanted to see a month-on-month reduction in one-to-one time spent supporting customers with CMS requirements, and that's not by not answering the phone or answering our emails or anything like that. The idea being that our service encourages greater self-service, so all of the support calls that we deal with about, well, you need to click this, or that's a known bug, and this is the process that you go through, we would drive to more self-service so that the time and resource that we have is spent more on strategy and research and supporting people in softer skills. That was my goal. So I took them through the process that we undertook at the workshop. So the first thing that we did, and this is one of our horribly small meeting rooms, and we basically brainstormed some outcomes of things that we could seek to achieve that we thought were beneficial from our perspective. So we see more people turning up to our events, we see more participation in our surveys, we have more community involvement, we see an increase in downloads of support materials and things like that from our support wiki. Things that we could easily measure that were desirable from our perspective. So we grouped them, because we all worked individually, and we grouped them together, and we dot voted. We all got 5 votes each. And from that, we got a short list of, okay, these are the outcomes that we're going to try and work towards from our perspective. The next step was to identify your users, but we've been working with personas for 7, 8 years now. I spoke at the 2012 conference about our personas and that kind of thing, so you might have seen these before. So as a team, we didn't need to develop personas on the day, but when I was at the workshop itself, we created rough personas, and there they are. I took a photo and tweeted on the day that I was at that workshop. And it's not about having perfect personas. Ours are well established and they've evolved over time because we know our user group that we support very, very well. But the point of the exercise here is to externalize your own assumptions when you're working with a team. So even if they are the most horrible, rough personas that are not based on any evidence at that point in time, get them out there so that all of your team will agree who they're trying to serve with the thing that you're working on. And as you do little bits of research and you put things out there and see how people respond and find out what they think, you learn more about your user group anyway. So these are just a starting point, so you can evolve them together as you work through a project. So moving on from having a set of personas, we brainstormed again, and this time we're identifying potential needs that our users have. And we focus on particular types of users and what we think their pain points are. So again, we ended up with a set of ideas, and we associated them with our different personas. Just as a slight aside, Ross Ferguson, who spoke here a few years ago, he kindly peer-reviewed these, and the main piece of feedback he gave me about this whole presentation was, get some better walls. And then the final step, and this was the real light bulb moment for me when I was in the workshop, because I was thinking, so far so good, lots of post-it notes, you go to UX workshops and things like that, they've got the Sharpies out, you've seen it all before. We built essentially a table, okay? So you can see the 4 columns, and you can see how rough it is when we did it ourselves. So we believe, the first column, the leftmost column, says we believe that what we're going to achieve. So with the things that we prioritized with our dot votes, we put there. Then we had our personas, and we tried to map the things that our personas wanted against the things that we wanted. And it was only then that we started thinking about those ideas, those feature ideas, the thing that normally comes first. It was only then that we started thinking about features that we could potentially do to specifically address a need for a particular type of user with a particular type of need and map that to our need as well. So what you've got there, basically, in this very, very rough table, there was a lot of trading going on as we moved this around. Essentially, we were building those lean hypothesis statements that I talked about, and we'll come back to those again in a moment. So you can roughly see a series of rows in this table here. And each of those is generating a hypothesis statement. So here's a couple of the example ones that we've worked up. So we believe an increase in user support self-service will be achieved if Ed, our everyday editor, gets a walkthrough of key features and top tasks with video guidance to support the written materials. And another one, just as another example, we believe an increase in will increase our user support self-service if Olive, our very occasional user, gets quick answers to her CMS support questions with an inquiry form that suggests FAQs based on keywords. One of the nice things about the new CMS was some very powerful form functionality where we can put a field in and we just say, ask your question, and it's looking for keywords in the background, and it's also generating links back into our support wiki. So before they submit the support call, they're seeing links back. So those kind of people who go, I can't be bothered to go through your wiki to find the answer to my question, I'm just going to send an email and get you to do it for us. That was the idea there. So what did we do next? Well, we did the smallest thing we could do to test our hypotheses. We thought about what we needed to learn first, and crucially, what was the least amount of work we needed to do to learn it. And I would say with user support, it's an ongoing experiment. We're definitely succeeding here because we are experiencing a downward trend in our support calls, despite our user community growing month on month. We've delivered a new CMS. There's more interest from other parts of the university. We're doing really well in that regard. But we recognize there's a lot of factors in play more than just the little experiments that we're doing. And that's probably, in this particular experience, the biggest challenge. But what we can say is we're spotting with the videos, the analytics are showing that they're well used. The anecdotal feedback from our user group is that they like them, they'd like to see more. So it's an experiment that we're continuing. We're growing that catalogue. We're going back month on month through the support calls, looking for trends in things that people are asking over and over. We're looking for examples of where people are using our CMS really badly to deliver really awful things, and trying to put things in place again to support and promote that. And with the Smart Inquiry form, the biggest stat that I got out was only 2% of visitors to that form subsequently submitted a support call. Our problem, I think, with that was that we're not driving enough people to support form, and this is why it's a long-term goal for us here. We've been supporting the user community for nearly 10 years now, so there's an email address that's been out like for forever, and in tons of websites. So a significant portion of people are still avoiding the form. So the use of the form itself is working pretty well. We're just not getting enough people to the form. And I'm interested. The analytics, until they drop off a couple of points in the journey, are very promising, but I do want to do some usability testing here, because there is always that nasty risk that people are just finding the form awful. I don't think that's the case, but we want to have a look at that some more. So all in all, one success, something that we're going to keep going with, and one where we may kill it off, but we may not. But the fact is, with both of these experiments, minimal effort. We're putting as much interest into learning how people are interacting with our new products to decide whether it's worth pursuing with, rather than just blindly doing it for the next 5 years. Okay. One more example to tell you about, which is I've deliberately picked one user support thing that's got nothing to do with software development at all. This one is a bit more development focused. So our website search, we had a bit of time and resource to evolve and improve the search experience. This was back in the back end of 2014. So I ran a feature, the same survey approach that I take all the time with features and things like that. If you've ever heard of Jerry McGovern. If you haven't, Top Task Survey is fantastic. Do investigate. But basically, we ran a survey with staff and students, and we basically said, here's a lot of things that the search could do. Pick the top 3 things that you'd like the search to do that would make it a better experience for you. And you can see there that the top 3 things that people voted for accounted for 35% of the votes, the top 5, 56%. Number 3 was the one that the development guy who was working on this, his eyes lit up. The advanced search query builder. Because with the Google search tool, it pretty much came out of the box. It was a very, very quick win from a development perspective. But he realized very quickly, how am I going to make this look okay in the interface? I can see there's going to be problems. So that's why he came to me and said, can you help me design an interface to make it more usable? And I could see there was a lot of work there. Now, I've mentioned this already. It's well established that what people say and what people do aren't necessarily the same. And that was the thing that was nagging away at me here. Really, really, people are asking for more advanced, cleverer search things. Is that really what they want, or do they just want good search results? As an example, McDonald's don't ask people what they want and then build their menu based on what people say they want. Because I think if they did surveys based on what would you like to see more of, I think you'd see a lot more salad on the menu. But in reality, McDonald's build their menus based on what people do rather than what they want. And there's your salad. So I said I'd get back to Benny, and just for a second, the danger here is listening to what people say. Just because people aren't complaining about your product, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing a good job. And there may be things, just because people aren't asking for a particular thing, doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want it. People often don't know what they want, and that's where this idea of quick experimenting, diagnosing problems by observing, or at least trying to understand your users' motivations comes in. One last thing that I've ripped off from someone else, and I'll get back to the story. I love this. The product death cycle. No one uses our product. Ask customers what features are missing. Build those missing features. No one uses our product. I'd say, for us at the University of Edinburgh, it's possibly the same for you, that maybe it's not no one uses our product, it's more everybody complains about our product because they don't have any choice but to use it because it's a university-supplied service. Again, ask the danger of asking people. Anyway, back to my story. So we were talking about advanced search, and we were trying to work out how to build that into the interface. So what we did was a little experiment. we revealed an advanced search tab in our search results. But when people clicked it, they got this. We didn't reveal it for very long, because I think if it was found out that we were doing this, it might not have gone down so well with some people. But we revealed it for a very, very short period of time. I think it was 3 8-hour windows in the course of 1 week. Okay? And then we took it away again. One of those things, it's easier to ask forgiveness than to ask permission. Guess what? So I said we revealed it 3 times. It was seen about 35,000 times. Guess how many times it was clicked? Anybody want to hazard a percentage? 0.2%. 0.2. So about 1/3%. It was about 90 times it got clicked. And there was a little survey there as well. Admittedly, people weren't expecting that, and they probably didn't want to participate in a survey when they're in the middle of a search task. I recognise that. But the reality is nobody expressed a preference for what they wanted to see. Nobody took part in the survey. I appreciate that. But I think that says, when you think back to that survey, the number 3 thing, it got hundreds of votes. It got 11, 12% of the votes. But in reality, when we presented it, nobody used it, or tried to use it, should I say. So we reduced the development time because we just decided not to do it. We killed it as an idea. We learned something that our long says, it's out there in research, as I've said already, but something that maybe I needed to convince some colleagues that, if the survey says that, we should do that. But it gave us the time to focus our efforts on other areas. So we spent our time that we had much more smartly. So that's my little story. And I'd just like to leave you with a few reminders, a few recommendations. So the first thing, as I say, if you take nothing else away from this, learn that lean UX hypothesis statement and just have a go next time somebody comes to you asking for that link on the homepage, that new widget, that totally new software, that new service. Try and fit it into that lean hypothesis statement. To just challenge, is this what you mean? If I do this thing for you, this is what you're expecting is going to happen. Get creative about how you test your hypotheses. The Thomas Sharon book that I mentioned there, Validating Product Ideas, is excellent for that. It's tons of ideas, and it's all based around UX methodologies. So we got very lean. We presented a link. It took like an hour's effort to present something in the interface and then take it away again. And we learned enough that saved us a week or 2 of work. Help your managers by framing their requests. And the key thing to remember with all of this stuff, you might get some enthusiasm with your team, but it's not a validation effort if you're not willing to kill the idea. You have to accept that if it's wrong, we're going to abandon it and move on. Leave the egos out. So I've provided a link there which goes back to a narrative of basically what I've talked through here that I presented internally a few months ago. I'm going to stick my slides up on SlideShare before the end of the day, but if you're interested in what I've been waffling through there, and probably missed a couple of good points as well, it's all there in a blog post already. So I'll end there. As will Benny. Thank you. Anybody got any thoughts? Hi, there's a microphone on its way up. Right up to the back of the room to start.
If you can introduce yourself, your name and who you work for.
Sure, I'm Marianne Kay from Digital Clarity Group. My question is, I wondered how that project for CMS user experience improvement came about. We've heard a lot of people complaining how they don't like their CMS and it's not usable, but but it's very rare that those complaints lead to an improvement project. So where did the initiative come from?
Coincidence, I think. Probably, I'd like to say there was a great strategy within the University of Edinburgh, but yeah. I have been working at Edinburgh on the CMS service for about 10 years now. And I have a background in training, and I was the user support manager, so I was one of the 2 core managers. Someone took the techier side, and I take the user side of things. So I've been doing that for 10 years across two content management systems. I've always had an interest in usability and user experience, and my role's evolved. So I've always put usability at the heart of everything that I do for the user community. So we had a content management system that was very powerful, but everybody hated it, and it was demonstrably very inefficient, and it was having an impact on the business's engagement with the service that we were providing. So when the time came to change the content management system, and we switched to an open source solution that maybe gave us a little bit more flexibility in terms of what we could do, I was there poised and ready to pounce, really. So I'm lucky I work with a great team who've got an open mind for these kinds of things, so we could build it in. And the masterclass that I'm running tomorrow, which is all about agile usability testing, is basically a run through what we did every development iteration. We watched people use our CMS all together, we identified things, and we prioritized new problems. So we were constantly looking, but it's just kind of, it's in the blood, I suppose, now. So look.
Thank you.
I wondered if the people who are asking for the features, do they know the cost of providing those features?
Kind of. It just depends. I mean, the last 8 months or so, we've been experimenting with other funding models. So various parts of the institution have been coming forward with additional funding rather than central funding to specifically deliver particular features. So that the person with the money there quickly finds out. But because we work in an agile way, you kind of break down the features into a series of sub-features. And so the principles that I've been talking about apply equally in that context too. So as you do in agile, you go from the must-haves through to the we could and should. So I guess, yeah, I mean, I suppose ultimately the person, paying has to know. It's just a question of, from my perspective, is the thing that they're asking for truly going to deliver the thing that they think they're going to get from it? And so it's, from my role is challenging that requirement. So who do you believe is going to use this? What will they use it for, and what will they get out of it? Because sometimes teasing that information out, you diagnose that actually it's not feature X that they want, or need. They want feature X, but what they actually need is feature Y, or the things that they prioritise aren't necessarily the right ones. So,
Martin Dunlop from University of Strathclyde. When you said earlier on about if, for example, the vice principal comes along and wants a feature, I'm sure that'd be something a lot of universities might not have the clout to say no to. How would you tackle that problem?
I'm talking big here because there's no vice principals in the room. No, I'm not suggesting that we say no because it's pretty much impossible. But still persevere with the hypothesis statement, because you end up doing the thing that they want, but what you've done is agreed what they believe it's for and what it'll deliver. So if you build in a way to objectively measure that everyone agrees with, I suppose the long-term view is that people start coming to you with problems rather than with features. So yeah, I don't pretend for a second that we get away with turning things down. I can think of 3 websites or software projects that I've been engaged with this year that I don't have the greatest confidence in terms of what the implied outcome is meant to be, but hey, we're doing it.
Hi, Dan Wiggle from the University of York. I like the thing you did with the advanced search button. I think that's a neat trick. And I wonder, after disproving the hypothesis that the advanced search button was what was required, having been the 3rd item on that list from the top task survey, did you do further work to dig into what it was that users actually needed that led to them saying that was the 3rd most wanted feature, having proved that they didn't actually just want a button? And how did you dig into that?
With the time and the resource that we had available, and we had a list of things. So you saw that survey with the most popular things. The thing that I didn't put up in the slide here is we almost always kind of turn it into a matrix. So down one axis you have how popular something is, what the demand is, or what the usability benefit is, or whatever, and across the other axis how hard it is to do. So we kind of have like a 4-quadrant matrix. So we try to focus on the things that bring most benefit for least effort. So really, in that instance, we just moved on because there were 3 or 4 other things that were doable in the time that we had available. So no, to be honest, that one just got parked. But I was pretty confident with that one because I had a very strong inkling that was going to be the case anyway, because it is so well established that what people say and what people do are not the same, and typically people think what they want is more sophistication and more power, when in reality their behaviour shows that what they want is greater simplicity and speed.
Hi, Sam Trafford, University of Liverpool. I was just wondering, in terms of relating to the advanced search button again, you said you released it over an 8-hour period on a few occasions. Did you vary the way it was presented at all?
In that instance, no, but what we did before that was we paper prototyped a few different designs. So it was some very rapid iterative usability testing on small samples, and went with the one that seemed to be working best in that instance. I think there were maybe 3 or 4 ideas, if you like, of designs that were tried before we got to that. I think I know where you're coming from, that there could have been a usability issue there, that they weren't noticing the call to action, so they weren't interacting with it. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'd just like to finish off that first session of the first talk by asking people to give their thanks to Neil in a traditional way.
Thanks very much.